I made a kingdom of geniuses but with no strength, and these are strong but with no intellect. I gave them a century before forcing them against each other. So which one is the best, being smart or being strong? So I create the world with two lush biomes with trees and stuff, and then I create the wall to separate them. I then place some humans and modify them to be very smart, and I place another group and also modify them to be very strong. This is the first year and they both created kingdoms. I renamed them Geniuses and Brutes. Year 2, and this is Oskela, the queen of the geniuses. She's honest and a genius, and she's already hard at work. King of the brutes' name is I rename him Eo. He's strong and giant and stupid. And he fell in love with Eogara, who had nightmares. I wonder if she saw something. A glimpse of the future and the carnage to come. Meanwhile, Oskela, the queen of the geniuses, hasn't fallen in love. She's hard at work. They are really geniuses. They have a lot of houses and only one tent. On the other side, they have a lot of tents and a few houses. Let's see how it evolves. The brutes have an heir named Pablo. He is strong, has boosted vitality, he's a giant and fat. A perfect warrior. And in the meantime, Oskela still doesn't have an heir. All she wants is work and stay hard and grind forever. And thus the geniuses have a lot of upgraded houses. Usually the kings name their sons as chiefs, but not Oskela. She names one of her bestie. I renamed them Lela. Year 7, the brutes must face a wolf. This could be dangerous and... oh. Well, he was annihilated. The brutes have so much damage, and they can kill pretty much anything in barely one shot. They can survive the rudeness of the outside. Might be useful later. Year 12, for the geniuses, all is going fine. They have a clear advantage. They build more buildings and in better quality, like a farm and a watchtower. They build fast and they build smart. On the brute side, you can see two lovers going at it in a... wait, what's happening over there? When I click on the woman, she's satisfied and... pregnant? Oh boy, they just did it like this in the outside. That's why they got more children and are brutes. Come on now, place your bets. Is Oskela finally in love? Well, nope, she is still working hard, alpha male and all that jazz, you know. There is really a difference between how they conceive children in these kingdoms. The brutes, they are numerous, about 52 peoples and 32 geniuses. That's quite the difference right now. Eo has 10 children and Oskela none. On the brute side, there is always, no matter where you look, a house with, things are happening. You could say that is a good thing, but on the other hand, well, they do not build. The geniuses have upgraded all their houses and have many important buildings. The kingdom is healthy. The brutes on the other side, they have a lot of tents, not upgraded, and well, they... you know what. In the first few years, both kingdoms have positives and negatives, but it's overall quite balanced. Let's see what they become over the years and what happens when I finally remove the wall. Fun fact, the brutes have written a language called Bena. I had to rename it Banana, and in their culture they do not elect a chief, it is a warrior ascension, like the strongest is the chief. So technically, Pablo can lose its kingdom to someone stronger. A few years later, Oskela is still without any child, but her best friend Lala is indeed pregnant. But please, how do you explain the loss of health? How? I mean, I don't know if I want to know or if I don't want to know. Anyway, let's skip a few years and Pablo is still training. Or at least he tries, because he's a giant and he is fat. So he moves slowly and gets stolen everything. He's no longer the heir, stolen by someone called AI. That's right, even the characters in World Box are not safe from AI. Anyway, he's strong, rich, ambitious, he's the perfect heir. The geniuses are still in advance with their building, like for instance the mine. But year 28, the true question is Oskela finally with child? And the answer is... yes! After 20 years of doing nothing but work, she is pregnant. And well, the child is finally born and his name is now Alpha. As soon as he spawned, well, mommy is back to work. What an incredible queen. The brutes still are more numerous than the geniuses. That means that if right now I remove the wall, what happens? Will the brutes win? They have a lot of strength and can kill anything, but the geniuses might have access to better weapons. Right now I think the brutes win, just because of sheer strength and numbers. They are made for war. But all of a sudden, the world changes. Snow is falling and darkness is engulfing the whole map. There is a forever winter. Year 44, this is the new age of despair. And well, humans have now to fight for their life against cold ones. Magical creatures born from the ice who leave trails of fire when they die. They spawn in large quantities and they are slowly but surely testing the defenses of each kingdom. We might now see who wins. I found out that someone in Genesis has a shield capacity, and I found out also they have a religion named Pico, and I had to rename it Pika. With it, they can have a shield, they can have lightning, and they can force a rebellion. The brutes are fighting back as well, and they are one-shotting everything. And well, this is where you see a gap being formed between the two kingdoms, for a reason quite simple in fact. And this reason is why both Lela and Oskela passed away. The queen of the Genesis is the woman who worked the hardest in the world to develop its kingdom, and all she got was a cruel death. And Alpha, the heir of barely 18 years old, must take over the mantle of a broken kingdom. They have ferocious enemies and the hardest of times even surviving. The population gap between the brutes and the Genesis is getting crazy. The Genesis just don't survive to this edge of despair. The reason is, they just don't have the physical strength. They don't do any damage to the cold ones. Meanwhile, the brutes are one-shotting pretty much everything. To a degree that in the year 47, a necromancer mage spawned in. Yeah, it's the edge of despair. Anyway, this thing is supposed to kill nearly pretty much everything in its sight, but he was, well, killed in just a few seconds. The brutes are that strong. This is how stupidly OP their natural advantage is. They are getting carried to victory. The geniuses have to find a solution, quickly. Meanwhile, the brute's heir, named AI, the best warrior in all of the kingdom, stays at home. He talks to nobody, doesn't train anymore, and just do nothing. Meanwhile, both kingdoms are struggling against the cold ones. They are doing fine, but it's not good. Iwagara, Io's wife, dies. And it's sad. But Io just instantly finds another wife who is, well, 22. He's 66. Well, at least he doesn't have to do the divorce papers. There are 215 brutes for barely 150 geniuses. The gap is getting wider. And AI is still sad. He hasn't come out of this house for like 3 years or something, I don't know. In short, the geniuses are in trouble. Just look at the armies of both sides. Geniuses have 40 soldiers and brutes have 120. But Pablo remains alone in his house. It's been a lot of time since he went outside, and when you look at it, he's not very happy. Reason is, all his children died. And then another disaster hits the brutes. A gigantic earthquake shakes the ground. In the year 59, this is one of the worst things that could happen, because even if there is not a lot of death of the earthquake itself, a lot of houses were destroyed, and thus rendering a lot of people homeless and slowly getting mad. And when you look at it, you can see that many of them lost some children. The new wife of Io, Edna, was slain by someone who was just angry. In this climate of tension, nothing is safe, and Io fell again in love with someone half his age. Year 63, and something weird is happening at the brutes. Everybody is sad. No matter where you look, they all are sad. The gap between the two populations has greatly reduced. Now the Genesis stands at 167 and the brutes merely 185. That's quite a drop. So, what's happening? The brutes are technically supposed to one-shot the cold ones and so survive better. Year 67, you can see the kingdom of the Genesis. They had a lot of death in the beginning, now it's stabilizing. The deaths are decreasing, and when you look at the brutes, they are only increasing. This is a dangerous curve for the kingdom. So, what explains this death toll? Well, there is the cold and there is the absence of food and of course the earthquake. But the cause is much simpler. The cold ones. Remember, when they die, they burst up in flames and do tons of damage, okay? So the brutes, who are very strong and can nearly one-shot them, they fight the cold ones with swords in melee, so when they die, they burn. On the other hand, the geniuses have found a very simple solution for that. They built watchtowers, and they killed the cold ones from afar, thus rendering the flames useless. So, very fewer geniuses die when facing the cold ones, and so their population is growing steadily over the years. Year 82. The snow melts and the sun comes back. Everything seems good in the Age of Hope. The geniuses have a clear advantage. And the brutes are not going well. So in a way, I just kinda want to rush the end and go directly to the year 100. Anyway, year 100, I removed the wall and whoa, wait a second. Ian is writing a book. And he completes rapidly a war manual. And if I'm talking about this, it's because if the people reads the book, they gain +1 intelligence, 1 warfare, and then +5 experience. But how is some base stats really an advantage? That, my friends, is because you don't know how the game works. Let me tell you, +1 warfare makes you well more efficient at war. And gaining more experience means you level up faster. And then again, more statistics for you. Then EO is not going to write 1 book. He spent the rest of the time writing 5 books in total. Each of them giving warfare, intelligence, experience, etc, etc. This is a massive endgame buff. A buff the geniuses don't have. You see, kings start writing book after a certain age, a century old to be precise, based on experience. And the problem is, the king Alpha is merely 54 years old. Remember, the first very queen, Askela, died early, incapable of growing old. Alpha shares this with a friend. He's angry and cries a bit. He knows his kingdom is doomed. And so the year 100 comes. I remove the wall, the geniuses place a tent, and then the king of the brutes himself comes to the border, assesses the kingdom, and thinks about it. He goes back into the town hall, thinks for a second. It's official. The brutes have declared war on the geniuses. One of the geniuses' leader rushes early on against the brute. She barely survives with the shield, but eventually dies. Then the brutes attack from the south, and this is a brutal massacre. The brutes are faster and stronger and leave no prisoner. It seems like the war is very one-sided, and it already seems like everything is lost. But all of a sudden, you can hear some unknown sounds on the battlefield. It seems like the geniuses have developed some kind of uber weapon, the alien blaster. There is only 10 of them in the whole army of the geniuses. It is more than enough to kill the brutes. They can't do anything. They have swords and biceps against alien blasters and technology. Power balance has changed. Alpha dies in the chaos, and even if this is sad, it's the only bad news for the geniuses. They are conquering. At some point, EO, king of the brutes, picks up an alien blaster. Can he save his kingdom? And he's too stupid to fire. He doesn't understand how it works. It's like giving a Roman a modern assault rifle. He just doesn't understand how it works. And so he dies in battle, and quickly, the new queen arises, rushes into battle. She's the very best warrior ever produced, and she dies without doing anything. Then the capital city of the brutes falls, and then the whole kingdom is conquered. The new queen of the geniuses is barely 8 years old, but her birthday gift is none other than the whole world. The geniuses didn't win because of their physical strength and might. They won because they were more intelligent. They showed everyone that in order to survive, you need to have a brain rather than strength. This was a crazy experiment, and I have a ton of other ideas, so if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel.